Thanks for checking out this movie review video. This is for the 2021 film The Innocents. It's a Shudder exclusive and it's coming to Shudder on Thursday, August 18th. And I know there are a lot of people who have been anticipating the release of this one on Shudder. I'm here to tell you, definitely worth watching. This is a very good film. Although warnings on this one, it's dark, it's depressing, and it involves children in danger, terrible things involving children at times. And there's also an animal cruelty scene in it, maybe like two, kind of, involving one animal, but it is brief within the film. And I did read an interview in Rue Morgue magazine with the filmmaker that explained that this is all fake. I mean, that's the thing about animal cruelty in films nowadays, is that you can be very sure that it's fake. Uh, Decades ago, when you see it in a film, may very well not be fake. So rest assured that you're good if you want to watch it. But I highly recommend this film. It's very good. Written and directed by Eskil Vogt, who also did Blind, Louder Than Bombs, The Worst Person in the World as well. It's a Norwegian film, so yes, it is subtitled. It is Norwegian language. But I'm going to tell you, for people who aren't big into subtitled films, still give this a go because there are large stretches where there's no dialogue or there's very few dialogue. So actually reading the subtitles isn't that big of a deal. Like it's not too big of a task as far as subtitled films go. So it's very manageable for people who aren't big into reading subtitles. So just give it a shot. Quick synopsis. Don't want to give too much away, but it's basically about some kids who end up meeting each other who are all from different. Well, two of them are from one family, the other ones are from other separate families, and they start hanging out together, and they realize that there are things that happen when they're together, some kind of powers to a degree. So this is kind of like a horror sci-fi type film. So if you're into that, it's definitely very interesting in both those ways, the horror aspect and the sci-fi aspect. They are intertwined quite well, in my opinion, and it keeps a lot of interest. Whenever you can introduce like a sci-fi element to a horror film, I think that just adds additional mystery to what's going on, and this film really does that. So, like I said, it involves kids, it's dark, there's horror to it. I don't want to give you too much more synopsis-wise, so check it out, though. The film looks amazing right out of the gate. From a directorial standpoint, very well done. Cinematography, very well done. I'm also going to say right now, the kids' performances are phenomenal. I was reading in that interview I was telling you about in Rue Morgue magazine that Vogt had said that they spent a decent amount of time trying to find the exact right kids that they wanted for these roles. And I think it took them like over a year or something like that, if I'm remembering correctly. So they really held out to like get the right actors for this, and it shows. These kids shine like crazy on the screen. They're amazing. And in general, like there are adults in this film as well. In general, the cast, wonderful. I did not see any acting that I was just like, that's tough. All phenomenal. It's wonderfully done. And that's the thing, is like from a technical standpoint, everything is wonderful with this film. Like I said, acting really good, cinematography, directing. The score is really good, and it's not too crazy. It's not super over the top. It is very restrained, which is what I'm all about nowadays with horror films, is have like a very subtle, restrained score, because then you're not screaming at your audience, and because that's annoying when you're trying to be when it feels like the filmmaker's trying to lead you by the hand too much. So yeah, you see through the eyes of the kids in this film and and their perspectives, and it's interesting because they have this innocent, naive aspect to them. Obviously, The Innocence is the name of the film, but it does raise a question: how innocent are kids really? Especially if they're kind of left to their own devices, especially if they're hanging out with one another and influencing one another, and where those influences end up coming from. So yeah, The Innocence. So there's definitely a lot to the title, and there's a lot to the perspective that you're seeing from, and how interesting it is. So it's cool that they were able to kind of capture that really specific from a kid's perspective. And there's like small things that get done where like you are seeing something happening with adult or they're doing something, but you're not seeing all of what they're doing. It's strictly from the actual viewpoint of what the kid is seeing. So you're not getting all the information. You don't know what that adult is doing. So you're in the mind of that kid who's watching the adult. So really well done in that sense. The film starts with small concerning things and gradually builds with growing discomfort because you don't know where the progression of this film is really going to end in the end. And the thing is this, it is like a almost a 2-hour film. I think with credits it's like an hour and 57 minutes and some seconds. And it just keeps like it starts slow and then it builds and then it builds and then it builds and it's done with good pacing. So the fact that it's almost 2 hours, it doesn't really seem like it's almost 2 hours, and you really do need that time. So I would not say that this film needs to be cut down, even though it is almost 2 hours, which I typically will say it needs to be cut down, but not with this story and the way it needs to be told and the way it is told within this film. It is a slow burn. It is a very slow progression of continually in very small increments making things more making things less comfortable, making things feel more dangerous, upping the tension as they do it, and it really does maintain tension quite well. So it was important that it was paced that way, and it's as long as it is. It's interesting because at the same time that there are some troubling things happening within the film, there are a few kind of hopeful, uplifting things going on as well to kind of like have a little bit of a balance. So it's very much like real life, the real world. Like there's some really awful things happening that we're all experiencing and seeing, but at the same time, there are these small things that give you hope that look, very nice and light and kind of refreshing in a sense. And yeah, that is definitely a play in this film, and I think it's kind of showing that there is this mirroring between like an adult's life and a child's life. They're super different, obviously, but you get the same mix of things, like terrible things and great things at the same time. Each character has their own personality, and you can understand each of the characters to a degree, but there's also this kind of group think and group persuasion that ends up happening. But for each of the characters, it's kind of like a to what degree, like who's an influencer, who's a follower, who's in between, and how are they going to make a decision? Like, what way are they going to go? And I'll talk a little bit more about that concept, I think, at the very end. Yeah, at the very end, which kind of ties into subtext and theme within the film. There are plenty of oh no moments where it feels so tense because you truly don't know what characters are going to end up doing or where the scene is going to take you. For that reason, the whole film feels dangerous in a sense, especially if you're very concerned about characters, which I was concerned about characters, because it just feels like most likely in this film nothing's off limits, especially when there's animal cruelty very early on and the fact that it's centered around kids and it's horror. So yeah, kind of on the edge of your seat in a very tense and scary way, in my opinion. The movie gets pretty dark and depressing. I'm going to say it again. It gets pretty dark and depressing. There's no, okay, I was going to say there's no, happy ending. There is, to a degree, but you're not going to come away from this film feeling good. I'm going to say that. So if you're looking for a light horror film to make you feel good after the viewing, this is not it. If you want to see one that's dark and depressing and is really well done and is one heck of an experience, this is the film for you, I think. Good ending to it, but I kind of feel like it was a bit anticlimactic the way it was executed. I think there are definitely different ways this could have been executed to put more of a punctuation point on it, make it feel like it had more impact to it. It just kind of, the big thing that happens in the end, it just felt too anticlimactic, to be honest, and that was kind of a big bummer for me. But that doesn't take away from the fact that this is quite a good film. Like I said, again, it's almost 2 hours, but it really doesn't need anything cut because of the nature of the story being told. It works quite well. Pacing is really good. The film looks a lot at loneliness and boredom and what that can end up leading to with kids. I mean, just think about when you were a kid, all the stuff that you kind of got into. When you were bored, you didn't have anything to do, and you're kind of left to your own devices with your group of friends. It kind of takes that premise and blows it up to a degree, and it's like, worst case scenario, where can this go in a horror realm? And well, even worse, in a sci-fi horror realm. Yeah. Last thing I'm going to say is there's an inherent good and an inherent evil in influencing situations within this film. It's those that end up being in between that you're kind of waiting to see which path they'll end up choosing, which is very much like real life because, you can agree that on a daily basis, there are people who are pretty awful individuals trying to influence people and people who are pretty amazing and good individuals trying to influence people. And there's a ton in between. It's kind of like the quote from the film Assassination Nation, which is amazing if you haven't seen it. There's a quote where the main character says, she's quoting someone else, and I forget who she was quoting, but she said that 10% of the population is inherently good, 10% is inherently bad, and the other 80% can be swayed either way. Which is a scary thing to think about, if that's even like remotely true, but kind of seems like it's pretty true some days, doesn't it? And that's kind of at play within this film, is this kind of like, will they, won't they, which way are they going to skew, how badly? Yeah, there's a lot of mystery to where the film is going to go, and that's good. That's the hallmark of a good film. So out of 5 stars with half stars and play, I'm giving us a very solid 4-star rating. I thought about going 4.5, but that anticlimactic kind of ending just did not sell it for me, so I'm going 4 stars. Had the ending had a lot more impact if it was done in a different way that didn't make it feel anticlimactic, definitely would have been a 4.5er, but 4 stars on this one. I would be interested to know your take on this, though. If you've seen it at this point, go ahead and put it in the comments. And we can talk spoilers in the comments. That's fine. Spoilers in the comments. Everyone be aware. So yeah, let's talk. Also, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I appreciate that. Literally keeps me motivated to keep doing this. I'm putting out 4 to 5 videos a week. When I'm putting this review out, it's 5 this week. It's usually just 4, though. But that's a lot of work, and I feel like if you want to repay me, literally subscribing to the channel is the best way because it does keep me motivated. It means very little to you. Like, it's quick, painless, costs you nothing. So I would appreciate that. Also, hitting the notification bell button so you will know when I'm putting up my new videos. And then if you could watch them soon after they go up, that would help them. And I would appreciate that. But regardless, I thank you for taking your time to watch this video. And until next time, keep it brutal.